Thank you. We'll go ahead and have our invocation. Todd, would you?
Sure. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the ability to come and to meet as leaders and citizens. Lord, we wish that you would guide us and lead us and help us to be good leaders and good providers for our community. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Call for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those against? Okay. Also approval of the minutes from February 23rd, 2023. Get a motion, please.
So moved.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those against? Okay. We're not going to be here that long. Is there anyone that would like to speak from the public right now, recognition of the public, because we are very tight on time with the commission meeting here. And because of that, last meeting I allowed a public forum whenever we were looking at all the data that was brought to us from CTAS. However, with our backs against the wall and the commission meeting here, I'm gonna have to limit the conversation to this table here. We might be able to open it up later on if we have the time, but I would like to keep it to this table initially. So does anyone would like to talk tonight? Okay. We have no old business, so we'll go ahead and move on to the new business. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get ahead of the curve here of trying to figure out where our population is, the growth, where the schools are, so that we can devise a plan to fund these schools if necessary, or redraw with the cooperation of the school board to get these districts redrawn. And that's where Mr. Josh Sutter is going to help us out here. Now, where'd he go?
No old business.
Did he? Where'd he go? Let's see. Okay, so guess whenever he comes back, we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation that he's done, which is dealing with future population trends of the county versus the school utilization that we have presently. Okay, there he is.
Thing comes down to finding a mouse that'll work.
Oh, that's what it was.
Apologize, Mr. Chairman.
No problem.
A little technical issue.
I know, some good things happen.
Y'all ready for me?
Sure. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank y'all for having me
here today. If I'd known that Mr. Long was going to be here, I'd have worn my sport jacket and tie. Commissioner Brown asked me to come speak to you guys and talk about population trends in the county. As it relates to education and schools and that kind of thing. Some of that stuff's a little bit out of my bailiwick, some of it's right in the middle of my bailiwick, I guess you might say. In the planning world, there's really two ways to think about planning and how you plan and operationally day to day. There's long-range planning and short-range planning. I've talked with David about this a lot over the years and Mayor Isbell. What my office does primarily is short-range planning. So short-range planning means taking development applications, processing things that are coming in that are time-sensitive. State statute says you have to process a plat within a certain amount of time. Most of our time is tied up in that, and it's reflected in our name, Development Services. Had some conversations with several commissioners. Commissioner Hyde is one, Commissioner Mansfield, some others, about that name of my department, and maybe reflecting the way that the county commission feels about approaching planning. Maybe it might be better to have more of a community type focus. And that's what long-range planning is. Long-range planning is what you guys are looking for here this evening. I've done my best to try to address that, but it's looking at longer range trends, data, amalgamating data, trying to make it visual by making maps and those kinds of things. So I've done my best at this. We don't really do it very much in my office. We don't have the staff that does that. We don't have a GIS employee or anything that does that. But I've done my best to beg and plead to get it. So the goals of this presentation this evening, I didn't know exactly what you guys are looking for, so there's going to be information overload. I apologize for that, but I'm going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you, and the intent of that is to see what you like, see what you don't like, let me know, is this tracking, is this as we say in the Marine Corps, is it tracking, and is it what you want to see, or is it way off target? And just kind of that's what I'm hoping for, is a little feedback to let me know how close I am here. But what I'll talk about is some avenues that I kind of explored and went down with data that I was able to accumulate. Others that I went down that I think were pretty successful, I think show pretty well where we're at. Others that maybe didn't go as well, and others that were kind of a dead end because I couldn't get the information that I needed in time. I had about a week to prepare for this. And so there's some stuff, some really key information I'd like to return to you guys, either via email or come back before you and show you at some point in the future.
Well, just to give you notice, you might be back next month.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If we have a lot of questions, I'm sure you'll be back next month, and that'll give you more time to get your data and
Yes, sir.
taken care of.
Yes, sir. Well, as I said, we don't necessarily create data, but we've got a lot of partners across Middle Tennessee, assessor's office upstairs, city governments, a lot of folks that are willing to help out if you ask for information. So that's where a lot of this information you'll see this evening is coming from. Challenges. One of the most significant challenges that I kind of ran into here in the last few days is getting a shapefile. I don't know if y'all know what a shapefile is, but it's the basis for a map. Whenever you see a map with a whole lot of stuff on it, layers like city limits layers and stuff like that, there's a file behind that. It's called a shapefile. That contains all the data for that map in a really compressed format. And GIS people, it's a whole profession, and they go to school for it. They can make maps based on that. I wasn't able to find the shape file that I needed to really show the school zones as they are today. The information that the assessor's office has, the information that's on the school's website as well, the overall maps, they don't contain the new school zones with the Liberty Creek campus. Of course, middle school's not online yet, but elementary and high school is. So there's some stuff I'll show you toward the end of the presentation that I think might be zeroing in pretty close on what you're wanting, but it's not right because I don't have the data yet. Other challenges, there's 8 cities in Sumner County. A lot of people don't know that. There's eight cities in the county, so there's 9 jurisdictions. We're one of the most complicated jurisdictions in that regard anywhere in the state. And half of our cities are actually in 2 counties. So that makes things even more, when you're trying to figure out what the population of, say, White House is. That's harder than it sounds like, because they have a population you can find on the census, but part of it's in Robertson County. So there's challenges like that that you don't really think about. Each city is the steward of its own data. So we're not in charge of the city, in any way, any cities. They don't report to us, they don't have to give us anything, we don't compel them to make anything or anything like that. Some are super good at it. Hendersonville is very, very good at it. Gallatin's really good at it. Others just don't have the resources really to, you know, they're kind of like the county. They get by day to day, but they don't really get out there and have the ability to plan. And then everything since COVID, 2020 has thrown everything into disarray. I think any numbers that you see out there, they don't really account for that yet. That stuff hasn't really worked its way through the pipeline yet. And in my office and every other planning office in the state, particularly here in Middle Tennessee, things went wild for a while there. Population shifts, and there's a link I'd like to show you if we have time that the census data, the census office puts out that shows migration patterns and that kind of stuff's pretty interesting. These are a few good maps, and I'll be glad to send this information out to everybody if y'all want it. These are just, I'm not gonna go through these right now. I might return back to this one just to show you. It's pretty interesting. The Census Bureau is able to tell you where people are coming from and where they're going. It's very interesting. These other two links are very good as well. So some numbers from the 2020 census. This is something I've used in presentations for the last year or two. Sumner County had a 2020 census population of 196,281. That's a 22.18% increase from 2010. So we were the 7th fastest growing county in the state. I like to say, really though, it was probably 6th because Trousdale County is number 1. They were the fastest growing state, but that's because the state opened a prison there. And so about 2,000 of those folks, well, they don't really take up many services. And you get shared sales tax revenue for them. So it's for rural counties, it's a boon to get a prison. But you'll see the Middle Tennessee counties, Sumner was toward the end in terms of overall growth, 22.18% behind your Williamsons and Rutherfords and all that. But still, you're talking 95 counties, it's a lot of growth. There's some data here. The folks at GNRC have they pull information from an organization called Woods and Pool. That's a private organization that does a lot of data management. You can buy information from them. Basically, everything you get from them is pretty good, but it costs a lot of money. And so GNRC acts as a clearinghouse across Middle Tennessee for data like that, and they give it to anybody that wants it. That's a city or a county in Middle Tennessee. This is something I pulled from one document or another. I can't remember which one it was, but this is one we won't go through all this data, but this is one to really look at if you have time, because it's very interesting. Where it talks about its population trends from 1990 projected all the way out to 2045 across Middle Tennessee. And we'll just kind of zero in on Sumner County. You can see in 1990, Sumner County had a population of about 103,000. By 2045, you're projected to be out there at about 280,000. So about a 300% increase from 1990 all the way out to 2045. I'm gonna show you some numbers there in a little bit. I mean, there's just little clues you'll see every once in a while that I think they're pretty conservative. I don't think they really get Middle Tennessee. And I'll show one example of that kind of, I think, highlights that. But still, that's a lot of growth. But I think it's conservative the way that they're putting it, probably, unless something really big changes.
Are there age cohorts behind this?
That's one thing that yes, that information is available, and it can be utilized. I don't get into that too much here. That'll probably be a phase 2. I think right now this is kind of a high level picture. If you guys want me to come back, maybe we can drill down on more specific demographic information in terms of, you know, population under 18, population under 5, those kinds of things. We can find those.
Very helpful.
If it's all, 55 plus, it's not as big as a.
Exactly. Population trends, here's the actuals for Sumner County, or for the state of Tennessee rather. You can see from 2010 to 2020, 9%. You can see the overall trend, 2000 to 2020 last, over that 20-year period. You had Tennessee at 51% growth, Sumner County at 50%. This is one thing that we were able to pull out. The incorporated the cities in Sumner County experienced 60% growth from 2000 to 2020. The unincorporated area, which is what my office is in charge of, we do planning and zoning and all that other stuff within the unincorporated area only. Experienced a good bit of growth, but a little bit less. You'll see your growth is primarily in the cities. There's a good bit of growth in the county. It's important to remember the unincorporated part of the county is about 420 square miles now. The cities are about 100 and something, low hundreds, I forget the exact amount. And so most of your geographic area in the county is unincorporated. So that tells you that your cities are what's driving most of the growth across the county.
And do you have a statistic that breaks that out by city?
We can get that. We can get that. And I'll talk about it here in just a little bit, some of that. But again, with the woods and pool folks, they have their population projections. They did some in 2017, where they talked about Sumner County. They do them on an ongoing basis. But you see right here, 2020, and in 2017, so 3 years from 2020, they projected Sumner County's population to be 186, 143. That was in 2017. 2020 came around, and the census actually came out, and it was actually 196, so they missed it by about 10,000 people, so about 5% short. So, you know the saying about statistics, lies and all that. I don't think it's lies, it's just a lot of extrapolation, but I think if they missed it by 5% in 3 years, what does that tell you realistically about 2045? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say, with any sense of reliability. And a lot of that goes back to what I was talking about with the cities, and they're in charge of their own planning process, and it changes. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute too. City of Gallatin has some projections. I looked in their recently adopted comprehensive plan and potentially soon to be amended comprehensive plan, that Plan Gallatin that they've been working on for a while. They project a 63% increase within the city limits of Gallatin, so from 2010 to 2045. Again, seems pretty conservative that far out, but it's based on, again, woods and pool data, Census Bureau data. You can see I'm loath to click on any links right now because I'm afraid it's going to mess my presentation up. This thing can be a little wonky, but when we get to the end, if you guys want, they have a link that they've provided that shows all their ongoing developments. It's pretty interesting, and I'll forward this out to you guys, and y'all have access to that. City of Hendersonville, they have some projections. It's hard to find anything really formally written down, but on their website they talk about that they feel like they're going to be at 70,000 by 2030. So in another 10 years they'll go from 63,000 to about 70. That sounds about right for the city of Hendersonville. They've, to some extent at least, they've kind of hit the brakes on growth to some extent as far as new entitlements and multifamily and that kind of thing that maybe Gallatin hasn't quite gone that direction. City of White House, they've got a tool here. There's a link here as well that you'll be able to click on and go to a development tracker that they have. It's pretty interesting. I like the aesthetics of it. It's pretty cool. But their comprehensive plan was adopted in 2019, I believe, and they had a range of 14,000 to 16,000 as their 2040 population. They're right now they're at 13,000, so they're going to blow that out of the water basically. And one of the good things they have here is, they've got 4,700 units that have been approved since 2004. This many completed, so that tells you there's 3,600 units out there in the city of White House. That's at various stages of approval. Maybe they're not yet, breaking ground. Maybe they're underway. Maybe there's a big spectrum between initial approvals and construction. So this tells you that, if you extrapolated that out, said, 3,600 units, 2.6 people per household. White House has got about 9,000 additional residents there that they've entitled. Now that might be 40 years before they all build out. It's, there's no telling how long it'll take. It's just something to think about. And again, a portion of White House is in Robertson County, just like Portland and Millersville and Goodlettsville's in Davidson County. So I got some maps here that we were able to put together showing current population density. This is another one that you'll probably have to sit and kind of scratch your head at and look at a little bit. But current population density, and on top of it, and then 2045 population densities. So it might be a little bit hard to see right here, but there's a key right here. You'll see in the unincorporated parts of the county, you have densities. darker green goes to lighter green, means you see a little bit more density out in the county. You see people building houses and acre lots and 5 acre lots and those kinds of things. You don't see a lot of concentrated centers out in the county. But you'll see some of this yellow right here, population densities of, this is per square mile. So your population densities within the urban growth boundaries you see in the cities. You see some of that creeping out. You see a little bit more density over here in Gallatin as well. There's a heat map I'll show you here in a minute that does a better job than this, I think. So here's net projected growth. So this is overall additional people per square mile as you look across the county. These green areas, I mean, we're looking to see probably less than 100 new people per square mile between now and 2045. These areas right in here, these red areas is where you're looking at seeing up to more than 3,000 people per square
So
mile.
primarily apartments.
Denser type development, that's right, yeah. Townhouses, much denser single family, multifamily development, that kind of thing. So there's some areas in there though of planning interest, is how I put it, where there's things that are happening, things that have happened recently. One of them you see here, the city of Hendersonville has this little splotch right here where they're calling for, the projections call for a whole lot more density. It's right there. That area right there, you guys may have heard that the Westlake plan that the city's currently working on, they're revisiting that right now. And so it may be that that's that old town area. It has an old town zoning which allows more density, it looks like. I was looking at it a little bit today. I expect that they may revisit that. So I think this area right here, you're probably going to see some of that density, if not decrease, maybe I don't want to speculate what they're going to do. I don't get a voice in that, but might be some potential for change there. Where maybe in reality this won't be quite as dense as how it's looking right now. Right here in Gallatin, though, I think you can probably bet on a lot of that. This area right here, this is Highway 109 and Highway 25, Nexus Business Park. This obviously isn't all the developments, I just kind of want to point out a few. That's 2,500 units right there. I think 1,300 single family and I forget how many multifamily. So there's a good bit of density there. Up a little bit further north, and it's not really shown on this, is the Meadows development, which is 1,300 more units. And then you can see a good bit of growth out here on the east side of town. So this is Hartsville Pike right here, and this is US 31. So I was kind of surprised to see a little bit of that. I was looking at their maps, and there's things out there that have been approved or could potentially be entitled for additional density on the east side of town. And then right here we have the potential Gallatin comp plan amendment that they've been talking about a little bit here lately. They just adopted their comp plan a few months ago, and they're looking at potentially going to a denser pattern. I think this calls for a rural development pattern right in this area along Peach Valley Road. They're looking at adding potentially about 1,000 units there. So that's not reflected. So that's what I was talking about. You get in projections. Projections are all well and good, but the planning process is ongoing. So things can change year to year. And so keeping up with this stuff, you can't do it once and then never look at it again. It's really, if you want to know this kind of stuff, you got to look at it all the time. So now, finally, to look at schools and that kind of thing. These are current school locations. Again, this is something you probably would need to sit down and kind of pour over a little bit. I do break this down in a little bit more detail here in a minute, though. But your orange dots are elementary schools, blue dots are middle schools, and the light blue and the dark blue are high school. And then you have your magnet schools and alternative schools are on there as well. You guys have seen this. I think this was sent out by the schools folks. This is a really interesting tool here. Probably in terms of what you guys are looking at, the capacity issues is probably, what the most pressing concern is. There's 5 that are listed on here that have current capacity issues. Hendersonville High, Howard Elementary, Gallatin High, North Sumner Elementary, and Portland East Village. I'm no schools expert. I'm not going to act like I am, so I'm not going to get into what all that means. I will say one thing, though, that I had to ask the folks at the schools what it meant because I didn't know. When you see the red numbers, what does core versus classroom mean? I might need to defer to Commissioner Hyde, but the way it was explained to me is core is essentially the physical plan of the building, lunchroom capacity, those kinds of things. Classroom is obviously classroom capacity. The way it was explained to me, if you're looking at one that's more critical than the other, classroom capacity is obviously a big concern. And so when you're looking at some of them, they have the core capacity as far as lunchroom size and that kind of thing. The way they calculate that is pressing, but the classroom size is not. You got a couple of Gallatin schools though that look like they're pretty close to meeting both metrics.
Can I ask, what's the date of this information? Is this 2022 data?
I don't know the exact date, but it's pretty new, is my understanding. It's the most recent information that the schools have.
Is Liberty Creek over there, Josh?
Yes. Yes, sir. Right here. Oh. Liberty Creek, and it shows the high school 36 and 37% respectively on the. And so just to show you where throughout the county you have those 5 schools where they happen to be, they're scattered geographically through the county. But you can see there's a couple here in Gallatin. And so just to kind of take everybody on a tour virtually of where these schools are in the county and which ones are which. Because I didn't know where all these schools were. I've driven past most of them, but if you're not out that way, you're not going to see North Sumner Elementary all that often. But that is one of the schools with a capacity issue. So when you see the little box around it, that's indicating that it's noted as having a capacity issue. Taking you basically on like a clockwise tour of the county here. So going down south toward Bethpage and Castaigne Springs. Bethpage Elementary is really the only school there. I just took this measurement, so I thought it might be interesting for everybody else as well. That's basically a 116-mile area right here that I've measured where Bethpage Elementary is. There's no other schools there that serve that area, so they all either go up into Westmoreland, the zone is somewhere in here. They go up into Westmoreland, or they drive down into Gallatin. And as Gallatin continues to experience growth, I think that'll be an issue. Looking in Gallatin here, Howard Elementary, Gallatin School, Gallatin High, you see. This is from the assessor's office. They had all the educational institutions, so you might see some private schools on here and that kind of thing as well. I'm just trying to overlook those, if you would. There's the Bill High. Moving up into this part of the county, here, Cottontown, New Shackle, White House, Millersville, that area, I would have thought that they would be experiencing some issues, and maybe they are, I don't know day to day, but none of them are indicated in that part of the county as having a current capacity issue. And moving up into Portland, you see Portland East Middle School, that's one of them that is listed. Here's some additional info that we've been working on, but it's not quite ready yet. Again, I just couldn't quite track down some of the layers. Elementary school zones here are indicated with their school. That's pretty helpful information. The middle school is accurate because the Liberty Creek Middle School isn't online yet, and so these school zones are accurate for the middle schools. High school, again, not accurate because you have the Liberty Creek campus in here. I'll be tracking that information down eventually, though. I'll get this happening. So one of the things that we did too was to overlay that population density map with the school zones. I think that could be pretty helpful if I could have got the accurate school zones. As you see, this is elementary here. Middle school, again, which is accurate. You see a good bit of that future growth is currently in the Shaper zone. And then high school is not accurate again because of the Liberty Creek answer. But I think that would be an interesting map to look at. And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman. So like I said, I threw a lot of stuff out there to see what stuck, and I'm welcome suggestions or comments from you all to let me know what you want me to work on.
Well, looking at each one of those cities like that, and I know that there's got to be a district for Liberty Creek. I don't know why that it's not out as far as board.
It just wasn't in the overall map, and I can,
Cause that's one of the issues that we.
Could you plot it based on voter registration data?
no, I don't think so. I'll show you on the school site here what I was talking about. There it is.
You probably
Let's make it go haywire. So they have the individual districts mapped out here, but when you go to high schools, see that, they just don't quite have, they don't have that one up yet. So, something to work on, it's not a big deal. I've sent an email over to the schools to track down the information, we should be able to do it, no problem.
One question I have is, and I know that you're doing the planning, and that's part of kind of what you do in terms of growth and look at where the population's gonna shift. Do we know if the schools actually do a planning process around growth and capacity, or is that just something you've decided to do from your angle?
They do.
Okay.
They have some folks over there, I mean, a pretty true small operation, to be honest, I think, as far as planning, but yes, they do a pretty good job of tracking development. They look at planning commission agendas and those kinds of things, and they try to figure out, they try to figure out what's coming. I mean, they get down, at least they have in the past. I know right now, everything to them, when they're looking at data as far as who goes where to different schools and trying to map a lot of that stuff, it boils down to the transportation department apparently, which is desperately short-staffed right now. And so it's hard for them to work out a lot of that information. But when they can get down to the, if you want to know how many students live in an apartment complex, they can figure that out. I mean, they can get down to a granular level that I can't possibly get down to.
And with additions or growth, we would be able to project the number of students that we could anticipate with say a high-density type development.
That's right. And you won't know for certain, but you can look at, typical numbers that you might see with something with it, depending on the type of development.
Somebody else have any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Josh, is there a way to show the county developments, what we have approved already on a map? Is that possible? I know that's a lot of work for your guys, and you guys are already
Well,
as it is. But
as I was saying a little while ago, we don't have a GIS person. Like, we don't have that. I did
Right.
bring, however, since you're a county commissioner that gets to vote on the budget, I have a vacant position that I might like to convert
I understand.
to that. And so Sullivan County, they've got a GIS analyst posted right now, which is something that I would like to try to do. Again, to do this kind of data analysis for the community and be able to do it. So, can't do it yet, but I would love to be able to do it with your help.
Is that a motion?
I don't have to make a motion.
Well, is there a way to have it roughly, like Portland, unincorporated obviously, has 600 permits pending? Just so we can get an area as we move through our 9 cities,
Well, what I'll
or
tell you,
9 parts.
what I'll tell you is to return back to this,
I just kinda like to see it like Gallatin has, you have
Yep.
however many thousand outstanding.
This one right here. So, Nexus Business Park has 2,500 units.
Yeah.
I'll just about guarantee you that that's more units than we have outstanding in the entire 400 square mile planning region of Sumner County.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so that's just a statistic I'm throwing
Sure.
out there. And so just to kind of put things into perspective. The growth, there's growth in the county. Certainly there's growth in the county, but what's fueling any schools issue that's out there is things that's happening in the cities, for sure.
Thank you.
But I would love to work on putting together some kind of a tool like that to have on the website.
Yeah.
So that anybody, when we get a new subdivision that gets turned in, public can go click on it, pull it up, learn who's turned it in, what
that
stage
should-
it's in, and all that.
Never mind, I'm going off.
So with the Nexus Compound, do they have like a time span? I mean, we're not gonna see them all this year. Is this over 15 years or 25?
I mean, it's always dictated by the market, you know, it's dictated by the market. I think they've gone to construction, they're grading
Yeah.
out there right now.
I see it, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, again, it might be 30 years before it builds out, or, you know, when I used to work in Shelby County for the town of Collierville. We went through something similar in terms of apartments when I was working there, where the town fathers back in the 80s and 90s had approved a whole lot of different potential multifamily uses and never expected anybody to use it because we were a single-family community. Well, then the market turned, and they wanted to build all of them all at once. Exactly what's happening in Gallatin. And so right now, the market is just there for multifamily, has been for a few years. But it might not be in 10 years. It may be that nobody wants to pick them up then, you know.
I just did a quick search on Liberty Creek's school website. If you go to the high school and the elementary school website, it shows shows a zone map on there.
Yes, ma'am, it's out there, but again, I was getting a little bit technical. To get the shape file that I need to put it into an overall map, I can't just take a screenshot of it and stick it in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've got to get some data.
Okay.
So I noticed that you put 116 miles or whatever miles for Bethpage. Was that really difficult to do? Because from a transportation cost perspective, that would be useful information to know, as well as how much geographical area is for each school.
No, that little tool that I use there, that's on the assessor's website. It's a easy little tool to use to that. But the schools, absolutely, they do, as far as I know. I mean, I'm no expert in how they do things, but they're always looking at ways to cut back on the fuel costs and that kind of thing, GPS in vehicles or whatever it is that they're doing.
Thank you, Josh. This has been great.
So I don't know if it was exactly what everybody's looking for, but we can reload and
Yeah,
try
like I
to
say, let us digest this, look at it a little bit more, and then I guess we can build out some more questions for you.
Absolutely.
And then if you wouldn't mind, just planning on coming back next month, I'll give you a whole month to look at this, and we'll refine our questions a little bit more.
One thing I'd like to do is to look at the, you know, maybe drill down a little bit tighter as far as school-age population and those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
that's one thing, yeah.
And then maybe we can get some numbers and some projections there.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
one of the things that I would like to see us ask for, it's a very valuable piece of information, is to receive each month a copy of the monthly attendance report for the schools. Now, I asked for that a number of years ago. For some reason, it never was sent. But the Education Committee and the Planning Office needs to have a copy of that each and every month, because that will, if you keep that for a period of a few years, you will see which schools are growing, where they're located, and even within a year, you may look at Liberty Creek and see that they have 800 students, and by the 9th attendance month, they have 840. Well, you say that's a pretty sizable growth in that particular school. On the other hand, you may go to a district like mine, which is somewhat of a settled community, older people, not as many kids. It used to be just bursting at the seams. And now go to Lakeside Park that might have 385 students that used to have 1,500. And maybe they are, at the end of the year, 386 students. We have a stable population growth there. But we need a copy each month, which will be accurate, because the school system gets paid based on that, and they're not going to turn anything in to the state of Tennessee that's not accurate. But we need each month an attendance report, and then we can save that and glean a lot of information.
Yeah, I was sent to the Commissioner of Education, so we should be able to get that. Just, I'll make sure I get with Dr. Phillips on that. Anybody else for the good of the cause? About time for us to get in the big room here in just a minute. Okay. Do appreciate you all your work and everything. I know it was not as long as what you'll have this time, but do appreciate it. Good job.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Okay, second. Okay.
Can we have a vote to adjourn?
Vote to adjourn. No, hey, Bob, vote to adjourn. Vote, yeah. Vote to adjourn. Those, we need to take a vote for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor?